Howdy. Welcome to this module where we'll talk about implementing games in the classroom. In the last module, we talked about choosing a game. And hopefully by now, you found a game that you're thinking of using in your classroom. Now, we're not talking about helping somebody else implement a game in the classroom. That will be in the next module. This module is about implementing a game in your classroom. And it doesn't matter if you're a kindergarten teacher, elementary, middle school, high school, or faculty at a university, or working in a company and giving classes to adults. The principles are all the same. It's about implementing how do you use a game in your classroom. There are three methods that we have found in our experience of using games in the classroom. The first one that the majority of faculty start off with is extra credit. They find a game and they say, okay, great, I found this wonderful game. I think it's really gonna work with my students in my situation. Remember, not every game works with every student in every situation. But you found one and you think it's gonna work, you wanna try it out. So I'm gonna assign it as extra credit to see how it works. Well, how much evidence would you expect when you give an extra credit assignment that assignment actually does something good, other than bolstering the student's grades? So I'll give you the example. A student is currently sitting at 70, right? If they do the extra credits, they get another 10 points, taking them from a C to a B, right? Or 75 to 85, doesn't matter. So they get 10 points, so they can essentially get a higher grade through the extra credit. Now you assign the extra credit, students do it, you say, oh, this is fantastic, look, all my students have higher grades. Well, did they get higher grades because of better mastery of the content, their understanding, their knowledge, the things that they're able to do has increased? Or did they get higher grades because they got an extra 10 points? So it's really hard to discern, right? Like, oh, well, yes, here's something you can do. And I, in fact, recommend no matter which way you assign a game, if it's extra credit or for credit, you always want to provide an alternative assignment. So for example, play this game or write an essay or read this chapter or read this book and then write a reflection on that. So the students can choose. And after they've done the extra credit, do an assessment of it. Don't just base it on completion. As we know, most well-designed learning games, either themselves, provide the information on the student's mastery and the completion of the game, or they're on a platform that provides that information to the faculty, to the teacher. So now we can say, okay, while your extra credit score is based on completion of the assignment and a test that you in fact actually mastered the content. Because remember, I can read a book from cover to cover and walk away and not remember a single thing. Right? We all watched the movie and the next day it's like, what did we just watch? Because we weren't fully present. Well, the same thing can happen with a game. Even though it's a deeper learning experience, it's much more engaging. We can still easily walk away, and the students can walk away not really gotten anything out of it. So doing an assessment on the content, on the knowledge, on the procedures that the game claims to help students with is a good test, and then helps you say like, okay, if the students completed 50% of the game, my test shows they're mastering 50% of the knowledge. If they complete 100%, they actually master 100%, or 90%. And whatever that may be in your case. And you only have to do this test once. Because once you established that for your classes, for your students, that's how this works, well, the next time you can purely base it on completion. You can say, okay, still an extra credit assignment, and you get full marks when you complete 100%. You get half the marks when you complete 50%. Because remember, based on your tests that you gave in your class with your students, you know what the level of mastery of those learning objectives is based on completion of the game. And the games are providing you the feedback. And if you use a game on a platform that also provides LMS integration and grading support, well, now that can really give you back time. So that's the first way of implementing a game. It's as an extra credit assignment. 95% of the games we've developed that are being used all over the world now by faculty and teachers are being used as 4-credit assignments. Because remember, extra credit, not every student is going to take extra credit, right? And so the first students that always sign up for extra credit are our A students. It's not actually the ones that really need it. It's at the last minute, the ones that are about to fail will seek opportunities for extra credit. But do we really want to offer something last minute? Even if it's that effective as a game can be? And that's, again, I leave that up to you, obviously, to decide. But implementing a game for credit in your classroom is as simple as implementing anything else. If that's reading a chapter, reading a book, writing an essay, as part of your lesson plan, when you develop your lesson plan or when you develop your curriculum, you decide, okay, what are my students going to do in terms of work, right? The reading, the writing, the quizzes they're taking. So as you plan that out, that's when you plan, okay, and here's a game. And then you start planning, okay, I'm going to have a conversation first. Then the students play, let's say, one level, 1 week. We have a conversation about it, or we have a quiz on that, and then they play the consequent levels in each consequent weeks. And so you write that into your lesson plan or into your syllabus. And based on that, you then assign points or grades, or 1 grade on the playing the game and mastering the content. So those 2 things are really, really key. Right? That you have a means of establishing that the students mastered the content. And I don't just mean at the year of the end of the year formal assessment or the exams at the end of the semester, but in form of a quiz, in form of a test, something that helps you really understand. Did the students master the contents? Because again, not every game works for every student. You want to be able to, for those students that it didn't work, it didn't help as much as for others, you have something else that you can help them with. Now you may be wondering, well, what about cheating? What if, somebody plays a game, but I don't know who's actually the person playing it? You're absolutely right. But that's nothing different than your current homework assignments. You don't actually know who is doing the homework when students are working at home. If somebody else is logging in onto the homework system and filling out the questions, or if somebody's sitting next to them and telling them the answers. Yeah, so that's no different. And you will find the same thing with a game. Actually, in our games, we designed them in a way that we encourage students to go and look things up to help them master the game and play through it. Because we have assessment built into the game, a self-assessment. in order to, as we discussed previously, complete a level, they have some assessment puzzles, for example, where we can really test if it is working. Now, you may be thinking, okay, I can see how I might not be able to detect if a student is cheating or not, but what happens? Well, when you do your formal assessment, just like with any other work that a student might do or not do, they're going to fail, or they're not going to do so well. So if somebody glances over the book and says, yes, I read the book, and then the assessment comes, they're not going to do very well. It's the same with the game. If they're not playing the game because they watched somebody else play the game and then just very quickly ran through the game using those videos, well, they're not going to have been able to really master all of the content themselves, and that will show up in your formal assessments. Now, the majority of faculty, when using a game for credit, assigns a game as homework. So in the flipped classroom model, because most games really take more time to be played. They're not just a few minutes that you can say, okay, well, let's have a quick game in the classroom, but they actually take more time. And so they're being used as flipped classroom assignments, just like if you recorded your lectures, have the students watch them at home or do the reading at home, and then in the classroom you discuss it. The same with a game. You assign it for the students to play at home, and then coming back to the class, they either write a reflection paper, they do a quiz, and you have a discussion on that. Now, one thing you may want to consider is starting gameplay in your class. Something we've seen, and I must say the most powerful transformation of a classroom, 120 students in a lecture hall, and I was just observing the faculty assigned a game. Before they assigned a game to play right there in the lecture hall, about half the students were paying attention, the other half were on their computers, cruising the internet, answering emails. The game was assigned, and students were paired up. All of them had to play with somebody else. Now that means only one could play and the other person would stand next to them or sit next to them and watch, but they were talking. And they were talking about the content on the screen, the game. 118 students out of 120, all deeply engaged in the content. This was the last 20 minutes of the lecture-based class. And when class time was over, the students didn't want to leave. They wanted to stay and continue because they were so engaged with each other in the game. I've never seen anything like that. Truly transformational. Now, of course, you can't take up your whole class section for gameplay, but you can start them off, and so they can get going. And now they're really enticed. Okay, I'm gonna go home. I want to see what happens next. I want to finish this. I'm gonna play. So that's one way of getting the ball rolling, and also helping some students that may not be as comfortable with a certain type of game. 97% of our students play games 4 hours or more every week these days, but they don't all play the same type of game. And so depending on the kind of game you're using in your classroom, some people may not be as comfortable with or used to playing such a game. And here you can give them an opportunity to at least get going, get started, and get excited about it. And then they go home and actually play on their own and finish the game. Another way of bringing games into the classroom is live action role-playing games. For example, where you actually have your students dress up and act scenes, kind of like a theater play, reacting to the past. Is such a game that's being played frequently in many classes. So I highly recommend looking at that. But that's a very different gaming experience. And again, when implementing games, it doesn't really matter what type of game it is you're implementing. If that's a digital game, if that's a a card game, a board game, or a live action role-playing game, like Reacting to the Past. The methods all remain the same. The third method that we've seen, and we've now pioneered here at Texas A&M University, is in the form of a game-based course. Now, traditionally, games, as well as textbooks or papers, readings, movies, are all supplemental material to a class. They can all be exchanged for something else and added on, but they're not the core of the class. Well, we flipped this concept and say, like, well, what if a game was actually the core of the class and everything else was supplemental? In fact, you can see the first game-based course, you can take it yourself. It's being offered as a continuing education course, Life of the Medici, a game-based course right here at Texas A&M. That's the first version where the game is really in the center, and then supplemental material is everything else. It's your lectures, your quizzes, your reading assignments. But it always comes back to the game. The next version of a game-based course is where all of those materials are actually inside of the game. So as you're playing, the lectures are included in the game. Your quizzes, additional reading material are right there in the game. So the player doesn't ever leave the game, but it's all contained within the game. And it's designed in a way where faculty can easily replace any of those elements. Like take the default lectures that are provided with the game and replace them with their own. Or replace the quizzes that are provided with their own. So making this a very powerful medium to help students and faculty in schools. That's the third and last form of implementing games in the classroom. It's through a game-based course. Now, as mentioned, most of the methods that we've seen that faculty and teachers we work with, how they've implemented games in their classes. If you are aware of another method that we haven't mentioned, please let me know. We like to try it, we like to hear about it, and then tell everybody else about it. I hope this has been very helpful, and I wish you a most wonderful rest of your day. And with that, as always, if you like the video, please hit the like button. If you like the channel, please subscribe and leave comments. Tell us, what do you like to see? Who do you like to hear from? So we can hopefully create those videos for you. Have a wonderful day.